What if I told you that the quietest people often carry the deepest power, that the man who doesn't raise his voice doesn't need to? In a world obsessed with noise, validation, and chasing outcomes, most people are running, but going nowhere. They seek strength in applause, in status, in controlling every detail. And when life shakes them, they shatter. But there is another way, a way rooted in ancient wisdom, a way forged through clarity, discipline, and stillness, not aggression. This video is for those who are tired of reacting and ready to start leading. Not others, but themselves. You'll discover the core of Stoic philosophy for modern life. How to control what's yours, release what's not, and walk with presence so powerful it silences the room without saying a word. Through daily Stoic practices, you'll learn to shift your focus inward, to your mindset, your choices, your emotional control. Because real power isn't volume, it's alignment. And the strongest man isn't the loudest, he's the most anchored. You're not alone if you've been feeling overwhelmed, scattered, or misaligned. But you don't have to stay there. Let this be your turning point. If this resonates, like this video, subscribe for more Stoic strategies that work. Stay with me. What comes next might just change how you walk and how the world walks around you. 1. You are the one who decides what defines you. You weren't born to be explained by someone else's opinion. Yet that's what happens, isn't it? You walk into a room and feel the need to prove something. You adjust your tone, your presence, your choices, just to be understood. And in doing so, you forget that your strength was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be lived. That's the cost of modern noise. Too many men walking around, waiting to be told who they are. Waiting for validation, waiting for permission. And in that waiting, they give away everything that once made them whole. But you were not built to beg for identity. You were built to define it. Power begins the moment you take back that responsibility. Not with shouting, not with dominance, but with inner alignment. You don't control the storm. You don't control how the world reacts, but you do control how you stand inside it. And that stance, still, grounded, unshaken, is more powerful than 1,000 words. Because it speaks a language the world has forgotten: silent confidence, rooted presence, emotional discipline, the kind of power that doesn't announce itself but changes the temperature of the room. Every day, people let their pasts define them. They believe trauma equals identity, that failure cements their ceiling, that heartbreak writes the story. And so they carry those stories like weights chained to their backs, wondering why their steps feel so heavy. But what if your past was just a test, and your present is the real answer? What if the pain you've been through was never meant to define you, but to refine you? That's the shift. That's what the Stoic understands. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire of his time, but he never let the title define the man. He returned each morning not to power, but to stillness, to his journal, to his own soul. Because power without self-awareness is just noise dressed as strength. But when you are rooted in clarity, every decision you make, every word you speak, comes from a place of choice, not impulse. That's what separates the man who reacts from the man who leads. In this world, reactions are cheap. Everyone's reacting to something: a tweet, a glance, a mistake, a memory. But a man who has defined himself doesn't react, he responds. And he does so from principle, not pressure. Imagine this: a boardroom full of chaos, blame flying in every direction, panic rising in the room like heat. But one man stays seated, still, eyes focused, breath slow. He doesn't interrupt, he listens. He chooses his words like weapons, sharp, few, deliberate. That man doesn't need to raise his voice, because he knows who he is. And when you know who you are, the world starts listening before you speak. Too many are chasing identity through noise, flashy careers, endless opinions, forced personas. But real power doesn't seek to impress. It seeks to align. You walk with power when your actions are born from your own values, not from someone else's applause. When you no longer need to be seen to know you matter. When your life becomes your voice and your presence is your message. You might be in a place right now where you feel overlooked, like no one gets you, like you're constantly explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. Good, let them doubt, let them dismiss. You're not here to be understood, you're here to be unshakable. So stop looking outward, start building inward. Each day ask yourself, what story am I living today? Is it mine? or one I borrowed to be liked? Define your stance, choose your foundation, and move from there. Because when you do, you won't need to force respect. You'll command it without a word. Your calm will be louder than their chaos. Your restraint will be stronger than their noise, and your life will speak a truth far deeper than any explanation ever could. You are the one who decides what defines you. Not the pain, not the praise, not the noise, just you. And once you own that truth, you'll stop trying to prove it. You'll start living it. That's when you begin to walk. Not for them, not against them, but with power. Quiet, focused, unmoved, complete. 2. Control what you can. Walk away from what you can't. Every man reaches a breaking point the moment he tries to hold what was never his to carry. Maybe you're there now. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep, but because you're exhausted from trying to fix everything. You carry the weight of how people see you, the outcome of situations you can't control, the behavior of others, the past that won't change. And deep down, you know it's breaking you. Not because you're weak, but because you've been taught that real strength means controlling it all. It doesn't. The Stoics understood something this world constantly forgets. True power begins with knowing your limits. Epictetus opened Enchiridion with one of the most liberating truths a man can hear. Some things are within your control and some things are not. That's not an escape, that's a map. It doesn't mean you become passive. It means you stop fighting unwinnable battles. You stop wasting your willpower on what never belonged to you in the first place. And you finally start placing your energy where it makes a difference. In your thoughts, in your actions, in your character. You've probably been told you can have it all, fix it all, be it all. And maybe you tried. You stayed in conversations that drained you, carried guilt that wasn't yours, tried to save people who didn't want saving. You demanded the river flow backwards, and when it didn't, you called yourself a failure. But you weren't failing, you were fighting the wrong fight. The storm was never yours to stop. Your job was to learn how to walk through it without drowning in it. Control doesn't mean grip, it means alignment. It means you know what is yours and what is not, and you don't confuse the two. When someone disappoints you, you don't spiral. You pause, you reflect, you choose how to respond. When life throws chaos your way, you don't react, you breathe, you root, you lead yourself through it, because that's the only leadership that lasts. Self-leadership. If your peace depends on everything going your way, you're not at peace, you're just lucky. But when your calm is built on clarity, on the deep knowing that your power lives within, you become immovable. Imagine this, you walk into a meeting. The room is tense, deadlines missed, expectations high, people are nervous, defensive, grasping for control. You sit quietly. You've already done the work. You've owned what was yours. You've released what wasn't. So when the fire comes, you don't flinch, you speak less. But what you say carries weight. You don't prove yourself, you embody your values. That's Stoicism in action, not theory, not performance, just quiet strength doing its job. The world doesn't reward quiet strength right away. It celebrates noise, drama, dominance. But those who last, those who lead when it matters, are the ones who govern themselves first. And the truth is, no one teaches this in schools. No one pays you to master your emotions, to control your impulses, to build discipline when no one is watching. But that's where the game is won. That's where the storm loses power, when it realizes it can't shake your foundation. You don't need a perfect life to walk with power. You need presence. You need the courage to ask yourself every single day, what is in my control? What is not? And how will I carry myself no matter what happens? Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. When it's unfair, when everything in you wants to scream or give up. That's when you write your definition. That's when you become the man people trust, not because you're loud, but because you're solid. Write it down, every morning, 3 things. What do I own today? What will I release? And how will I respond? With strength, with focus, with composure. Do this not once, but every day. Because clarity isn't found, it's built. Peace isn't inherited, it's earned. And power isn't about how much you control, it's about knowing what you never had to. Control what you can, walk away from what you can't, and walk with power, not because you conquered the world, but because you finally stopped letting it conquer you. 3. Discipline isn't restriction, it's direction. They told you that discipline was a cage, That self-control meant suppressing who you are. That structure kills freedom. But look at what happens without it. Chaos, regret, wasted years, men chasing pleasure to escape pain, living on impulse, reacting to everything, building nothing. That's not freedom. That's slavery, wearing a different name. Because without direction, every day becomes a loop. Wake up, drift, react, repeat. And the worst part is you know it. You feel it. That quiet frustration inside you, that's your soul begging for order. Discipline doesn't confine you. It frees you. It gives shape to your energy. It builds trust with yourself. It makes your time matter. It sharpens your focus so you stop scattering your strength. And once you realize that, everything changes. You no longer see discipline as punishment. You see it as power because it's the only thing that turns intentions into outcomes. Without it, you drift. With it, you drive. Every man wants to be powerful, respected, in control. But they want it without price, without practice, without sacrifice. And that's the lie. There's no strength without structure. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he disciplined himself daily, his thoughts, his habits, his words. He didn't do it to impress others. He did it because he knew the man inside the palace was the same man who faced his own mind each morning. And if that man was undisciplined, nothing else would matter. We live in a world that sells shortcuts. Quick results, easy dopamine. But easy isn't lasting. You don't build anything real without repetition, without resistance. Think of it like training your body. If you only lift when you feel motivated, you stay weak. But if you show up regardless of how you feel, you grow strong. The same is true for your mindset, your emotions, your decisions. Discipline is your daily investment in who you're becoming. Imagine this. Two men walk into the same room. One follows every urge, every distraction. His phone buzzes, he checks it. His ego is bruised, he lashes out. He wants something, he takes it. He feels discomfort, he runs. Now look at the other. Still, focused. He feels the same urges, but he doesn't follow them. He chooses instead. He pauses, he evaluates, he acts when it's time. That man walks with power, not because he suppresses himself, but because he governs himself. The difference isn't talent, it's discipline. One man serves his impulses, the other makes his impulses serve him. That's the edge. That's the gap between a life of reaction and a life of purpose. And if you've been living on the edge of your emotions, constantly pulled by moods, circumstances, people, you already know how much it costs. Peace, progress, self-respect. But here's the good news. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to make one strong decision, then keep making it. Wake up tomorrow and choose one discipline. Not 5, 1. Maybe it's getting up when your alarm rings instead of snoozing. Maybe it's writing down your goals before you check your phone. Maybe it's holding back one reaction you would have let fly. Small hinges swing big doors. The more you practice, the stronger your internal muscle gets. Over time, this stops being effort. It becomes identity. You stop saying, I should, and start saying, I do. People around you will feel it. They won't always understand it, but they'll sense the shift. You'll no longer be the man who flinches, who snaps, who needs constant stimulation to feel alive. You'll be the one who carries himself like a man with a mission, and that kind of presence commands respect without ever needing to demand it. Discipline isn't harsh, it's honest. It's not the enemy of freedom, it's the foundation of it. Because without discipline, you'll always need the world to keep you in check. With it, you become your own anchor, your own compass, your own force. So choose your direction, choose your discipline. Not because it's trendy, not because someone told you to, but because somewhere inside you know you were meant to be more than moods, more than chaos, more than drift. You were meant to walk with power. And power only follows those who walk with purpose. Start with one step, make it count. Then take another. And don't stop. 4. Stillness is not weakness, it's war ready. People mistake silence for surrender. They see a man who waits, listens, thinks, and they assume he's soft. But real strength doesn't need to shout. It prepares, it studies, it sharpens in silence. You know this if you've ever sat quietly in a storm, not because you were scared, but because you were saving your breath for the right moment. That's not weakness, that's control, that's presence, that's power held, not wasted. Stillness is not about doing nothing, it's about doing the right thing, at the right time, for the right reason. It's not laziness, it's clarity. In a world where people rush to respond, to post, to prove, The man who pauses becomes the only one worth listening to. He doesn't act out of panic, he acts from position. That's what Marcus Aurelius understood. Amid ruling Rome, he carved out time, not for escape but for reflection. Because without stillness, even power turns reckless. And reckless power always burns out. We've been taught that fast is strong, that instant response means intelligence, that urgency is leadership. But that's not how the Stoic sees it. The Stoic doesn't race emotion, he regulates it. He doesn't fear the pause, he uses it. He doesn't move with the crowd, he moves when it's time. Because he's not looking for motion, he's looking for aim. Look around, watch how most men move. Always reaching, always proving, always reacting. Watch how they chase results with noise, then call it progress. But you don't build empires with chaos. You build them with structure, rhythm, and calm. That's the battlefield no one trains you for, the one inside your own chest. And that's where stillness matters most. Not when things are easy, but when the pressure comes. Picture this, a negotiation table. Voices clash, ego takes the floor, everyone's interrupting everyone. But one man sits back, calm, hands still, eyes clear. He speaks once and changes the direction of the room. Not because he's louder, but because his silence was earned. Because he didn't react. He absorbed, he thought. And when he moved from intention. That kind of man is always ready for war. Not because he wants it, but because he's already mastered himself. Self-mastery is the real armor, and stillness is part of that armor. Not a shield that hides you, but a space where you see everything without being pulled into it. Stillness lets you feel without being ruled, speak without wasting words, decide without second-guessing. It's not passive, it's strategic. And the men who train in it become dangerous in the best way, disciplined, deliberate, and untouchable by chaos. But don't expect the world to reward it right away. People will misread your calm as disinterest. They'll question your silence. They'll try to poke, provoke, pull you out of it. Let them. Your stillness isn't for show, it's for you. It's how you reset, how you reconnect with the direction that matters. Because when you're calm, you can hear your purpose again. You remember your boundaries, you act on values, not triggers. And when you walk this way long enough, stillness becomes instinct. At first, you'll have to fight for it. You'll mess up, you'll speak too fast, react too soon, move from emotion. That's okay, it's part of the forging. But each time you return to stillness, even if it takes effort, you gain clarity, you gain discipline. You become less fragile, more focused, harder to manipulate. You stop being a puppet of your environment. You start becoming the architect of it. So begin with space. Start your mornings not with scrolling, but with silence. 10 minutes. Sit, breathe, listen. Don't fill the moment, let it speak. Then carry that rhythm into your day. Before you respond to a message, pause. Before you speak in a meeting, breathe. Before you react in a conflict, return to your center. The man who holds that pause holds the room. Not because he demands it, but because he commands it. Stillness is not about being untouched. It's about being unmoved. Not numb, but rooted. Not inactive, but intentional. It's the difference between instinct and insight, between noise and meaning. And in a world that rushes to speak, the man who waits becomes the one who is heard. Practice it, protect it, use it. Because stillness isn't retreat, it's readiness. And the man who walks with stillness is never behind. He's always prepared, quiet, precise, unshaken. That's the man who wins, not the battle, but the war within. 5. Strength isn't shown when things go right. It's revealed when they fall apart. Anyone can look strong when life is smooth. It's easy to appear composed when everything aligns with your expectations. But real strength, the kind that endures, doesn't show up when the sun's out. It appears when the sky cracks open, when plans fail, when the people you trusted turn away, when you're standing in the ashes of what you thought would last. That's when your foundation is tested. That's when you find out if your strength was performance or principle. Most people carry a polished surface, reputation, routine, persona. They think if they just hold it all together, they'll be okay. But then life hits hard and they unravel. Not because life was cruel, but because they never built from within. They built around applause, around comfort, around image. But none of those things hold when the storm comes. They're too thin, too shallow, too external. What lasts is what's rooted, what you build silently when no one's watching. That's where your strength is hiding, underneath the noise. The Stoics never promised ease. They didn't chase peace by avoiding pain. They trained for it. They expected adversity. And they used every challenge as a forge. Not to make them bitter, but to make them better. Marcus Aurelius wrote not from comfort, but from conflict. He didn't write in luxury. He wrote in pressure, in uncertainty, in the cracks of his empire. And what he left wasn't just thoughts. It was a blueprint for how to stand when everything else falls. When your world starts shaking, remember, the shake is not the threat, it's the reveal. It shows you where the cracks are, in your discipline, in your values, in your patience. And once you see them, you get to reinforce them. That's the gift of pressure. It's painful, yes, but it's honest. It tells you the truth about who you are and what you've been avoiding. And that truth is where transformation begins, not in comfort, but in chaos. Imagine this: you lose the job, the partner walks away, the money dries up, the ground beneath you shifts. Everything you planned starts slipping through your hands. You can scream, blame, run, or you can stop. Breathe, square your shoulders, ask yourself, who am I without any of it? If the titles are gone, the validation gone, the routine's broken, what remains? That answer is your strength. And if there's nothing solid there yet, good, because now you can build something real. Not for them, for you. When you face the storm, say this to yourself, not out loud, but in your chest. This is only a test, not a punishment, not a curse. A test of who you are when the script burns, when the lights go out, when no one's clapping. Say it, then stand. Don't flinch, don't fold. Let the pressure press, but don't let it define you. Let it carve you into something sharper. This isn't about pretending pain doesn't hurt. It does, it should. It's human. But pain is a teacher. And strength isn't the absence of pain, it's the ability to carry it with dignity, to not let it twist you into something bitter, to not let it shrink you into silence, but to let it pass through you, reshape you, and leave you with more wisdom than it found. Start today. Look at the pain you're carrying. Ask yourself, not why it's here, but what it's revealing. Is it showing you where you lack boundaries, where you've been neglecting your purpose, where you've outsourced your worth? Use that. Write about it. Don't run from it. Face it like a man who's done with excuses, who's done explaining why he's not ready, who's done blaming the world for what he hasn't built inside. You're not defined by the smooth parts of your story. You're defined by the chapters you survived, the moments you didn't break, even when breaking felt easier, the days you chose integrity when no one was watching, the nights you stayed silent, not out of weakness, but because you didn't want to become like those who tried to hurt you. That's power, not the kind that boasts, but the kind that endures. So the next time life shakes, don't ask for less pressure. Ask for more presence. Stand deeper in your values, anchor harder into your discipline, tighten your focus, and remind yourself, your strength was never about what you control, it was always about what you choose when control is gone. Let the world tremble, let the surface crack. You're not here to stay pretty, you're here to stand. Quiet, certain, built from within. 6. A man with nothing to prove walks differently. You know the type. He enters the room and doesn't say much, but somehow everyone notices. He doesn't try to dominate the conversation. He doesn't posture. He doesn't reach for attention. Yet his presence holds weight. It's not in his clothes or his title. It's in the way he stands, the way he listens, the way he doesn't flinch when silence stretches. That's a man with nothing to prove. And because he's not trying to prove anything, he ends up proving everything. Most men live in a quiet war with themselves. They want approval but won't admit it. They crave respect but chase attention. They try to control how they're seen instead of focusing on who they are. And in doing so, they give away power bit by bit until the man in the mirror is no longer steady. He's reactive, he's restless, he's trapped in performance. But the Stoic doesn't live like that. The Stoic lets go of the audience. He stops chasing applause because he knows that trying to be impressive is the fastest way to become invisible. A man who is anchored in his values doesn't need to declare his worth. He shows it through how he carries himself, especially when no one's clapping. His confidence is not inflated. It's internal. He's not looking around to see who notices. He's looking inward to see if he's aligned. That kind of clarity cuts through noise. That kind of presence doesn't beg for respect. It commands it through silence, through restraint, through control. But most people get this backwards. They think power is projection. So they get louder, they try harder, they show more. But real power doesn't need to be seen, it needs to be felt. It's not in the echo, it's in the origin. And when you build that kind of foundation, you stop being shaken by perception. You start being grounded in principle. Picture this: a man loses a deal. Public failure. People whisper, some mock. But he doesn't explain, he doesn't defend, he doesn't post a justification. He keeps showing up, keeps doing the work, keeps walking with his head up, not out of pride, but because he knows who he is when no one's looking. And slowly, quietly, those same people who doubted him begin to respect him. Not because he won the deal back, but because he never lost himself. That's strength, that's dignity. That's the kind of authority that outlasts noise. The Stoic sees this clearly. He knows the loudest man in the room often carries the most fear. He knows that if you're always chasing recognition, you'll always be a hostage to someone else's opinion. So he breaks the pattern. He stops performing. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares about something deeper. Self-respect, inner peace, purpose over performance. And this doesn't mean you never speak up. It means when you do, it's deliberate. It comes from a rooted place, not from insecurity, not from ego. When you know you have nothing to prove, your energy changes. You walk into rooms differently. You lead differently. You don't seek conflict, but you're not afraid of it. You don't chase validation, but you honor truth. That kind of posture can't be taught. It has to be built. And it's built in silence, in solitude, in small moments of clarity, stacked one on top of the other. Start with your next conversation. Don't interrupt. Don't dominate. Just listen fully. Let your calm be your language. Let your composure speak. Then act with precision. Speak only when your words serve the moment, not your image. Watch how people start listening, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. Then take it further. Spend a week without explaining yourself, without defending your decisions to those who don't live your life. Use that energy to reinforce your focus, your discipline, your mission. The more you practice this, the stronger it gets. You begin to notice how much noise is unnecessary, how much of your life was spent reacting to perceptions that never paid rent in your mind. And you begin to walk lighter, sharper, more deliberate. You become the kind of man who doesn't talk about power, but lives it. Quietly, fully, unapologetically. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be known to have presence. You just need to be clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what you stand for, and clear about what no longer needs to take up space in your life. Walk with that clarity, speak with that calm, move with that restraint. Because when you no longer have anything to prove, you become someone worth following, without saying a word. 7. Power is not noise, it's presence. Some men walk into a room and try to fill it. Others walk in and the room adjusts. Not because they speak louder, but because they carry something quieter, something steadier. That's presence. And real presence doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't posture. It doesn't chase attention. It draws it without effort, without need. Presence is what happens when everything outside goes loud, but everything inside stays still. It's the mark of someone who knows who they are, so deeply, they don't have to prove it to anyone. We live in a world that confuses volume with value. The loudest voice gets the spotlight, the biggest reaction gets the clicks. People are trained to perform instead of embody. And so many men become echoes, louder with each reply, but emptier with each word. That's not power, that's noise. And noise always fades. But the man who moves from depth, he doesn't just speak, he resonates. Because his words are backed by silence. Because his stillness has weight. Because he's not trying to be seen, he's already rooted. The Stoic doesn't perform to be remembered. He builds himself to be unshakable. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress. He wrote to return to clarity. And through that clarity came presence. The kind you don't need to announce. The kind that doesn't waver when tested. Because true presence doesn't depend on how people see you. It depends on how you see yourself and whether you're aligned with what you claim to believe. Most men feel invisible, so they make noise. They chase external validation, then wonder why they're never satisfied. Because presence isn't earned from the outside. It's developed from the inside. You can't fake calm. You can't perform composure. It's built in solitude, in discipline, in choosing stillness over impulse, in choosing clarity over clamor. And that kind of presence, quiet, controlled, consistent, is more powerful than anything loud ever could be. Imagine a confrontation. One man yells, gestures, tries to dominate. The other doesn't match the energy. He doesn't react. He doesn't escalate. He simply watches, thinks, then speaks once, with few words but sharp ones. His calm becomes more intimidating than the other man's aggression. That's power. Not from force, but from control. Not from intimidation, but from presence. Because the man who isn't ruled by emotion will always have the advantage over the man who is. This applies everywhere. In meetings, in arguments, in relationships. When chaos rises, people look for the one who doesn't flinch. Not because he's detached, but because he's grounded. He's trained to keep his energy stable, no matter the storm. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not suppression, but strength through mastery. Not performance, but alignment. So how do you build that presence? You start by protecting your attention. Don't give it to noise. Don't rush to react. Build the habit of observation. When someone speaks, really listen. When something upsets you, don't explain it, understand it. Then respond from principle, not pressure. Speak less, but mean more. Let your energy say what your mouth doesn't have to. Train your nervous system to slow down under stress, not speed up. Make stillness your baseline, not your retreat. Each day, practice anchoring. In the middle of noise, pause. In the middle of tension, lower your voice. In the middle of chaos, breathe through your gut. Let presence become your discipline. The result won't be applause, it will be impact. You'll become the kind of man whose words are remembered, not because of how loud they were, but because of how real they felt, and whose silence is respected even more than most people's opinions. Presence isn't about being the center of attention, it's about being the center of yourself. It's the kind of strength that doesn't break when criticized, doesn't spike when praised, and doesn't change to fit the room. It holds steady, it listens deeply, it moves precisely. It acts with intention, not reaction. You don't need to speak constantly to be heard. You don't need to be seen all the time to make an impression. You just need to be fully where you are. That's the quiet power most people ignore, and exactly why it's unstoppable. Build that, protect it, walk with it. Because in the end, power is not in the noise you make. It's in the presence you hold. And the world always bends to the man who moves from within. 8. Let your life be the loudest message soars. You don't need to fight every lie. You don't need to respond to every insult. And you certainly don't need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That kind of battle drains you. It keeps you stuck in reaction, playing a game designed to distract you from what actually builds real strength. The truth is simple. What you do matters more than what you say. And how you live will always be a louder message than any argument you could ever give. When you begin to live with that clarity, you stop trying to convince anyone. You just become the proof. In a culture that rewards overexposure, where every opinion is broadcast and every win is turned into content, choosing silence feels like defeat. But it's not. It's mastery. The Stoic doesn't need to broadcast his progress. He embodies it. He doesn't shout over the noise. He becomes the man whose silence holds more meaning than another's speech. Because the more grounded you are, the less explaining you need. And the less validation you chase, the more weight your presence carries. It's tempting to try and set the record straight, to make people see what they missed, to prove that you're better, stronger, smarter than they thought. But the moment you start chasing recognition, you hand your power away. You give strangers the authority to define your worth. And for what? For a moment of approval? A fleeting applause? None of it lasts. What lasts is what you build. The habits you repeat, the standards you uphold when no one is watching. Imagine someone doubts you, they mock your path, they downplay your effort. Let them. Don't try to win their approval. Win in reality. Train when no one sees. Build quietly. Improve relentlessly. Let the results speak. Let your discipline speak. Let the strength in your restraint speak. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not to suppress your feelings, but to refine your energy into action, into control, into excellence. Because the world doesn't need more performers. It needs more proof. Marcus Aurelius didn't argue with fools. He didn't explain himself to the crowd. He returned to principle, to writing, to practice. He understood that legacy isn't built in comments, it's built in consistency. And the most unshakable response to disrespect, to betrayal, to being underestimated is simple. Keep rising. Keep doing the work. Keep sharpening in silence until your very existence challenges every assumption made about you. People will notice. They always do. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Because transformation is undeniable, and there's a power in becoming that can't be faked, rushed, or ignored. You don't need to yell when you're walking in alignment. You don't need to prove a thing when your progress is visible in how you carry yourself. Not in words, but in discipline. Not in explanations, but in direction. Start now. Look at where your energy is going. Are you defending yourself to people who don't matter? Are you spending time crafting perfect replies instead of crafting a better life? Shift the focus. Let go of the need to be understood. Let your habits say what your words don't. Let your actions answer every question. Because the man who moves with intention, who chooses silence over chaos, who acts instead of reacts, that man speaks the language of power fluently, even when he says nothing. So every time you feel the urge to post for validation, to argue with someone who doubts you, to prove that you were right, pause. Step back. Ask yourself, does this move me forward? Or does it pull me back into noise? Then redirect. Channel that energy into something that compounds. Build your business. Master your craft, train your body, sharpen your mind, show up when it's hard. Stay consistent when it's boring. That's how you speak without words. Because in the end, it won't be your clever replies they remember. It'll be how you moved through hardship, how you stayed grounded when others panicked, how you lived with clarity when others chased chaos. Let your life be your message. Let your growth be your response. Let your stillness be your defiance. And let the results be the only explanation you ever need to give. Power isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. Not through force or performance, but through quiet discipline and deliberate presence. This entire journey has not been about sounding strong. It's been about becoming unshakable. Stoic philosophy offers no shortcuts. It offers clarity. It reminds you that your strength isn't proven in comfort, but forged in pressure. And that your greatest advantage is never how loud you speak, but how well you govern yourself when life demands more than words. Each principle we've walked through, self-definition, controlled focus, disciplined living, grounded stillness, enduring pain, walking without need for validation, commanding presence, and letting your life speak for itself, points back to one core truth. You are not powerless, you are not broken, and you do not need permission to walk with strength. You need awareness, you need practice, you need inner alignment. And that can be built, one step, one breath, one choice at a time. So begin each morning with intention. Ask yourself what's within your control. Guard your focus. Choose your words carefully. Show restraint when it's easier to react. And when tested, because you will be, remember that every challenge is another chance to sharpen who you are becoming. Your presence matters, your stillness has weight, and your actions, repeated daily with discipline and awareness, are how you lead, not others, but yourself. If this message speaks to you, I invite you to share your own journey in the comments. What part of this resonated most? What are you practicing in silence that the world doesn't see yet? You don't need applause to be powerful. You just need to show up, rooted, present, and clear. Walk with power, quietly, steadily, and let your life become the loudest truth you ever speak.